Hi, Steve. Hi, Susie. Today I'm going to read a story from Tumbleweed Tales. It's a collection of stories from New Mexico. And as you can probably guess, it's going to be a Christmas story. And you probably also recognize Santa sitting here. This is the Santa that Steve and Paul and Kenyon grew up with in their house. And we also still have Paul's Christmas stocking. Still use it, stuff it on Christmas Eve for the Christmas morning present time. This story is called Christmas Windows. It won't seem like Christmas with no snow and without a tree anywhere in sight. Polly's face was puckered up. Pug had a sniffle, ready to be sniffled. And even Peter, the big one of the three, looked ready to cry. Mother, lying on the couch in the sunny living room, had to think quickly. It was because of her illness that the family had moved to this New Mexico ranch. "It will be fun to have a different Christmas," she said brightly. "You do like the ranch, don't you?" "Well, I like the horses," Peter said grudgingly. "And I like our neighbor Pedro, who comes to play with us. He says Pedro is Spanish for Peter." "I like the cows and sheep," said Polly. "I like my pet donkey," said Pug. "Now that's fine. And I like the sunshine because it makes me feel better. After all, we don't miss the trees much, do we?" "Not too much," Peter agreed soberly. "Except that I wish we had just one for Christmas. Here 'tis Christmas Eve and no tree inside or out." "Your daddy expected to drive into town in time to buy one of the pine trees that were brought down from the mountains. But he got a late start. With working in the kitchen as well as doing ranch chores, he hasn't had much time." The children were all silent, trying to look cheerful. "This is a queer country," said Peter at last. "I never saw anything like it with desert land all around us." "It's much like the Holy Land where they had the first Christmas," said Mother. "With cows and sheep pasturing on desert land and mountains in the distance. Even our houses are built like those in the Holy Land, flat on the top and made of mud bricks. And look at our windowsills. Why, they are wide enough to use as a table, or at least a deep shelf." Polly had a sudden idea. "Let's each choose a Christmas window," she shouted. "Oh, it's a fine idea. This room has 3 windows, 1 apiece. Each one can decorate his own window. When Santa Claus sees them, he will maybe leave our presents there." It seemed such a splendid plan that the children went to work at once on their windows. Mother helped them, and presently they were all busy as little beavers. Peter, who is the artistic one, got a cake of soap and began to draw a picture on his window. He used last year's Christmas card as a model and drew 3 camels with wise men on their backs. It took him the whole afternoon, but when he had finished, the window showed like 3 lifelike camels with wise men riding on the humps. Polly decided to have angels in her window. Mother made a pattern, and Polly worked away with scissors and tissue paper, using Crayolas to draw the golden hair and sketch in the faces. She tied long tinsel strings to the angels and let them float down from the top of the window. They looked beautiful. Baby Pug had the little Christmas figures that usually decorated the center of the family table on Christmas Day. She worked just as hard as the others, arranging and rearranging the tiny manger with the wax baby in it, the kneeling Mary and Joseph, and the animals that surrounded the manger. She worried all afternoon because, although she had plenty of cows and sheep, she could not find the donkey. Mother said it must have been lost in packing up for the move to Mexico. Just as the children finished their windows, Father came in with a fragrant pine wreath for the door. I got to the village too late for a tree, he apologized. They were all sold out. That's all right, Daddy, Peter stoutly said. Come look at our Christmas windows. As Father looked from one window to another, the worry left his face and his eyes grew soft and happy. He started with Peter's window, with all the children crowding around to look with him. Even Mother got up shakily from her couch to see the finished works of art. The three wise men were riding their camels against an evening sky that was just light enough, almost dark. While the family watched, the evening star shone out in the sky above the camels. The longer they looked, the brighter became the star, until it almost seemed to move as the star in the east had done. Next, they stepped over to Polly's angels, fluttering gracefully in the windows. But something had been added to the picture. A flock of sheep had chosen that very spot outside the window to rest on their way home to bed. It looked as it must have been on that first Christmas when the angels sang to the shepherds. The family moved on to Pug's window, and when the baby girl looked out through her window, she laughed aloud. There, coming along the path outside, was a dark shadow, but it was not too dark for Pug to recognize her pet donkey. It was just what she needed for her picture, for it might have been the very donkey Mary rode to Bethlehem. Getting to sleep that night was hard, as it always is on Christmas Eve, but morning found the windows as lovely as ever. Lovelier because the sills were piled high with packages. Even before the children had time to unwrap their gifts, they heard a knock at the door. When Peter opened it, he found his friend Pedro standing there with a package in his hands. You could never guess what it was in. The package held hot tamales, wrapped in shucks and steaming hot. Pedro said that his mother always made tamales for Christmas. Of course, the children had a package for Pedro. Peter and Polly and Peg decided that, even without a tree, Christmas on a New Mexico ranch was as merry as anywhere else in the world. Merry Christmas!